to the whole area. Yeah, I'm taking you to just the overall issues in the research regulations. As you see, hopefully someone is looking at my slides. There are some productions. Actually, since 1980s, the number of research projects involving human as a research participant in Tanzania has more than tripled. There is an increase of research registration here in Tanzania as well as in the world, but it has been observed that most of the research conducted in some African countries and some other sub-Saharan Africa. So this increasing of research in various parts of the world, particularly in East Africa and Tanzania, this has increased the cost of technology and the search for the novel remedies to health, environment, social and economic challenges is beneficial, but could involve exposing research participants to a spectrum of risk. Everyone knows the importance of research, but despite of its importance, but the research also has posed some risk to the researching participants in various parts of the in some projects. So society and the professional must concentrate on the building an ethical framework that will permit research activities to progress, but at the same time maintain public confidence that individual autonomy is respected. So despite of the importance of science, we need it, the advancement of science, but we need to protect our people from the any risk or hazards from the research. So research participant rights and the welfare should not be compromised when research follow their quest for new knowledge. Research is conducted for the benefit of the society. So everyone knows that research is conducted for the benefit of society. However, we have to protect our individuals who participated in research, because you see, there are so many issues which have been happening without protecting the individual from the research. So we have various of research. We have the social research. We have the clinical trial research, of which some of them pose the greater risk to study participant. Even sometimes death can happen into the research. For instance, we are conducting the clinical trials. The clinical trials, these are the kind of studies which sometimes we can use.
Dr. Gabriel?
Yes?
So the participants ask you to put in a presenter mode so as they can follow through. If you can do that.
Okay, I'm checking this in an area which is somehow not friendly. What about here?
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah, I say that always research is for the benefit of the society, because we are doing research in order to discover different issues. For instance, vaccines, it can be drugs. Some of them can be for the changing behaviors. So we are doing some of the research as an interventional research to discover some of the science. So despite of this importance, but it sometimes poses some significant risk with the study participant. That's what I'm talking about. So there is a need for all countries to put place guideline in the regulation that will safeguard the interest of research participants during the research. So because of that risk, we should have guidelines, and these guidelines have been started just after they said from the history of research ethics, just after the NAS trials. We observed a number of research which was very harmful to the study participant, and therefore the call for the guidelines was stated. What guideline every researcher is supposed to follow certain guidelines. And if we remember, the first document which has been raised due to research violations is the Nuremberg Codes. So the first document was the Nuremberg Code, and this document was established by the lawyers after the Nuremberg trials. So regulatory bodies, scientific review and the ethical review to ensure acceptable conduct in research should be in place. So since then, That's why we have this framework. So every research should be, we should have a regulatory bodies. When you say regulatory bodies in Tanzania, we're talking about the NIMRI, we're talking about the TMDA for the clinical trials, and the NIMRI for all of the researches. Health research conducted in Tanzania should be coordinated, should be regulated by the National Institute for Medical Research. But for the research which involve clinical trials, as I said, any research which involve the intervention trials, the clinical trials, this should be regulated by the TMDA. So the scientifically unsound research involving humans and animals is unethical because it may expose them to risk or inconvenience for no purpose. Even if there is no risk of injury involving person and the researcher time, the reproductive activities waste valuable resources. So when we talk about the risk, it's not, there is different risk. It can be physical, it can be behavioral, and any other issues which is not good for the researcher participant. Therefore, the scientific validity of the proposed research is essential for its ethical acceptability. So in order for the research to be valid, we as namely, we should observe the scientific validity. And there are so many criteria for scientific validity of the research. One of them is to subject your protocol to the review process, independent review process. This is one of the scientific validity. The issue of informed consent, always the study participant should consent to participate into the study. Also, risk and the benefit assessment should also be considered. However, this risk and the benefit assessment sometimes can be done with ethics committee by subjecting your protocol for review. But you as a principal investigator, if it happens, someone of you are being reading a reader or reading a research, you are also responsible to observe this good conduct of research. All of these we can call the scientific validity of the research. So the process of ethics clearance and approval for research involving humans as a research participant in Tanzania is carried out at the two main levels. Yeah, so here in Tanzania, we have our framework on how the research should be conducted. So we have the institutional level by zonal and IREX. The institutional level, it might be those research ethics committee from your institutions. For instance, when you are in MUAS, you have your research ethics committee. At KUHAS, the same. And some other institutions, they have their own research ethics committee. And then after that, we have the national level. The national level from the research, and this is called the National Health Research Ethics Committee. And this is under the Medical Research Coordinating Committee, of which the director of NIMRI is the one who rules and oversee all of this work. However, the NATREC itself, which has some committee which compose about 15 members, and these 15 members have their own chairman, and leading all the meetings of the NATREC. And the NATREC himself, what they are doing. So the role of the NATREC is to check all the health research conducted in Tanzania. They are looking their validity, they said use scientifically validated. Also, we are looking at cultural, social and cultural validity. As you know, nowadays we have a number of research which sometimes deviate from the culture and the norms. So NATREC itself is just like a mirror, the second eyes of the MRCC. And therefore, when I submit your protocol to NIMRI, obvious the NATREC should sit and look your protocol and give the granted. Once the NATREC approve your protocol, is the time where now you can have granted a certificate to continue with your research activities. So in terms for clinical trials, the investigator have to obtain approval from TMDA. So we have some relationship between NIMRI as well as the TMDA. So before you go to the TMDA, if you have the clinical trial protocol, first you submit that protocol to National Institute for Medical Research, you obtain the certificate, and then you go to TMDA, you are looking for your TMDA approval. However, nowadays we have the so-called parallel application. Sometimes at a certain condition, you might submit a protocol as a parallel. So while you submit your protocol at NIMRI, at the same time you can submit your protocol at TMDA. So that is what we call the parallel submissions. Because once NIMRI has been granted the approval, that particular time, also the TMDA has also revised your protocol, and then you can shorten the time of duration of waiting for the granting for you to get a certificate. So the process of ethical clearance for research involving human subject have seen, as I said before, that we have the institutional at the national level by NATREC, and then we have at the institutional level we have IREX, Institutional Review Ethics Committee. Sometimes they can call institutional review boards, or some of them they can call research ethics committees. Those are the same. It's just how they wanted it to call it. But we have the so-called ZREX. ZREX, this is zonal research ethics committees. To date, we have almost 2 zonal research ethics committees. We have Mwanza and we have Mbeya. So we have this ZREX, but I don't think currently don't have in some other areas. So when you submit your protocol, you as a student, or if you are not a student or you're a student, first of all, you have to submit a protocol at the institutional level. At the institutional level is where you can submit your protocol. When I say protocol, it's the same as you can say proposal, but for the clinical trial, we normally we use the term protocol. Therefore, you are a student, let's say, most of you is a student. You are a student, now I want to conduct a research, what you are supposed to do. So your research should be submitted to your institution. Your institution have the research ethics committee. It's where your protocol can be taken care. But if you are a PhD student or you are a master's student and your protocol involve foreigners in your research, your protocol could never end at the institutional level. That should be also taken care at the national level. So if you have question, please, you take care, and at the end of this session, you have the time to ask the question. But mind you, if you are a student and you are undertaking maybe a master's, and then your research constitute a foreigners, obvious, you are disqualifying to end up your research at your level, at your institutional level. The institutional level, it is only and if the research is involve only local investigators, and it is not a clinical trial. So for the research, which compose foreign investigators, or for the research which is clinical trials, though the research should submit it to your institution, and then you get a certificate of permission. After that, you have to submit your research to the National Institute for Medical Research again. This is compulsory. I'm sure everyone have understand of that particular time. So the ethical clearance approval is renewable. Normally in Tanzania, we are granted only 1 year, only one period, 1 year, sorry, 1 year period, and then you have to renew annually. The criteria for renew is because maybe your project did not end. You have to renew it, but there is a criteria for you to renew, of which we shall talk in some other sessions, because you can never granted to renew your protocol without submitting the progress report. So obvious, you as a researcher, you should submit a progress report. Normally, we as an NIMRI, we need 6 months progress report, and then you will submit the annual progress report. So when you are renewing or your protocol. We expect that you submit those reports so that you make us aware that now where you have reached with your protocol. For conduct of clinical trial, the PI has to obtain approval from TMDA as well. This is not renewed annually. So TMDA, they have their own issues. But when it comes to NIMRI, we need every year to renew your certificate. And this is because we want to know where you have reached since we granted you a certificate. And our certificate has been explained a lot in the statements, and they give you the insight, they give you some words which wanted you to adhere on that because that is a law or it's a country law. And therefore you should adhere it and not to say that maybe because you want to do. No, this is reinforcement, whether you want or not, you have to do that because this is practice is under the law of the National Institute for Medical Research Act. So this is just a summary on how it will be done on the issue of application of your project. So we start with the applicant submit the applications, and at the secretariat level, there is a checklist. People they are looking if we have adhered to some of the issues. If we didn't adhere it, you see is the application valid. So if it is yes, so you can continue. If no, you can see the applicant is sent back to you to comply with some of the issues which is missing in your applications. And then you will do an edit, then you will start to submit again. But if we have completed all the checklists and we have seen that now your application is fully equipped, so Secretariat send your application to the reviewers. And normally, it depends. We have to have expedited, we have an ordinary review. So we sent it to the reviewers, normally 3 reviewers who are expertise of your project. Maybe if you are submitting your protocol related to microbiology. So we have a lot of expertise as reviewers from the microbiologist session. So if we shall take almost 3 people, and then we give those papers, and then we wait it to give the results. So you will receive the comments from colleague who is also expert on the area of which you are going to do. So the reviewers review the application and return comment to the secretariat. So after that, the comment come back to the secretariat, and then secretariat sends applicant to committee. So here, these comments are normally, if they need you to do some amendments of the words or advice from the reviewers, the secretariat sends to you PI as well. So it is now your time now to deal with those comments which have been addressed by the reviewers, and then you return it back to the secretariat, and then after that, maybe you have finished those comments. What happened? So the secretariat will prepare the meeting according to almanac and send it to the committee meeting. And normally, the committee meeting for the National Research Ethics normally sitting in a month, they sit in twice. So we have one National Research Ethics Committee. We call this is a full body meeting, and then we have a subcommittee meeting for the clinical trials. So for the clinical trials, we shall send it. We shall wait for the clinical trial subcommittee, and for some other research. Now we use national full body meeting to discuss. However, despite of the reviewers have been completed their review, but also the committee has a chance to address the comments. So sometimes you might resolve your own comment from the reviewers. Again, you will get another comment. This is what we call the comment from the committee, because also the committee, the 15 members from the committee, they are also expertise. We have the professors, we have the bioethicists, we have people from religions, Shehe. We have some people from Catholic, Christians, Christian faith, and other expertise, which will review those documents. And then after that, the committee make a decision whether this protocol should be approved or not. So if the protocol is approved, obvious, the certificate is prepared and being granted to the PI. However, it has some process also here because our certificate also should be signed by the chief medical officer of the Ministry of Health. Therefore, the certificate should also send to the chief medical officer of the Ministry of Health. Sometimes we have the protocol or the proposal of which the committee denied it. As I told you before, there was a series of some protocol which sometimes deviate our social and the cultural aspect. So the committee now can check it. If the protocol, if the committee also see this protocol will provide more harm than the benefit, this protocol also should also be denied. For instance, our culture doesn't allow the issue of homosexual. Our culture doesn't allow it. However, this group has a significant contribution on the disease burdens, some of the disease burdens, but our culture and political leaders, they do not accept it. So such kind of research, they are sometimes, however, they can be done, but it gives some difficult decisions because the perception say that maybe we are promoting this issue, even though they are in our community, but permitting the number of research related to these issues, maybe we are also promoting. So some of the research cannot be denied. Another kind of research which can be denied is some of the clinical trials. Sometimes someone can come up with a drug. I wanted to do maybe a clinical trial from a certain medicine, and then that medicine actually the disease, they are very rare in this country. We don't have such kind of disease. So sometimes we ask ourselves, so what is the essence of that disease, of that product? So there are some questions on that particular time. So we have a number of examples of research which has been denied from the committee. So those who would hardly deviate our cultural practice, or sometimes those research, whether it is clinical trial or behavioral trial, but it brings some great risky as compared or harmful as compared to the useful. So these are some of the research which have been can be denied during the committee decisions. So namely through MRC approve the establishment of REX. So as I told you before, you have your institutional review boards, that is research ethics committee in your institutions. So how do this obtain? We normally, we as a namely, we establish this REX, but the initiator should come from the institutions. For instance, there is a university C, and they wanted to establish their ethics committee in his or in its institutions, university. So they have to apply to MRCC that they have with the institutions, and I want to establish an ethics committee. So we have the guidelines on how ethics committee should be established. So before you ask, or before you wanted it, or before you apply for this, you should be aware that we have this guideline. So you may peruse the guidelines, and the guidelines will give you what criteria should have, because there are so many issues in the guidelines. Some of them is you should have reviewers, you should have an office, and so many issues. And therefore, NIMLY will come to your institution and look for your facilities if deserve to get those to establish the institution research ethics committee. And this is very important because some of the researchers I told you before, they are not supposed to come to the NIMRI, but also only if you have an ethics committee in your institutions. So therefore, let's establish an institution whose mandate to carry out the research. The primary function of REX are to conduct the initial and the continued review and the approval of research protocol with aim of protecting the rights and the welfare of human research participants. So REX have a special role of monitoring research activities to ensure compliance with scientific and ethical requirements. So establishment of REX in your institutions also will require you to monitor those research which you have approved in various areas so that to protect and monitoring those research activities and to protect the human rights, protect the rights and the welfare of the human. There is a bit relationship between TMDA, COSTECH, and POLAG, that is President Office, the regional administrative and the local government in the research conduct. This is just a diagram you can see, and also I has been explained before at what particular time does the TMDA should included when you conduct a research, and at what particular time does COSTECH? Because COSTECH is whenever you have a research which you have the foreigner, obvious there should be the issue of the research permit. Your foreigners should have a permit to work here in Tanzania for the research activity. So at that particular time, you should also apply to COSTECH those permission for those people who are not a Tanzanian and they are in research activities, any kind, whether it is training or any kind of involvement into the research activities. So this, you can see this, the PIs, the principal investigators should also send their protocol to TMDA. Yeah, if it is a clinical trial, they should go to the institutional research ethics committee or zonal. And if we involve foreigners, you should also involve the COSTECH, and this is mandatory and it is a law. You should do it. That is the enforcement. And you can never do a research in any region without informing the President Office, regional administrative and local government. That is the TAMISEMI. So when you have all of these certificates, and then also you go to you ask the TAMISEMI, and then they will give you permission letter to enter into the review, because all the regions in Tanzania is belonging to POLAG. So these are the interaction between those actors in research activities. Tanzania Medicine and Device Authority is the regulatory authority in Tanzania responsible for regulating clinical trial. And this is from the Tanzania Food, Drug and the Cosmetics Act. As I said before, the sport-side investigator who wish to conduct clinical trial in the country are required to obtain authorization or permit from the TMDA before enrolling participants into their studies. All of these have been explained. Also, the issue of non-Tanzania researchers are required by law to get a research permit from the Tanzania Commission of Science and Technology, and this is also the enforcement. It is not for your own, for your willing. It's because of the law. So all research in Tanzania must get an IREC approval at the host institution where the research will be based. In case there is no available IREC approval, will be sought from the NATREC. So there are some areas where there is no institutional research ethics committee. So for you now, you can directly send your application to National Research Ethics Committee. Otherwise, if you have in your area, you have research ethics, but you can send to your research ethics committee your proposal to the Institutional Research Ethics Committee, which is nearby you. But mind you, as I told you before, when the research is a clinical trial, in spite of sending it to nearby IREC, but also that application should also come to namely, or NATREC. When the research involves the foreign investigators, should also research should also sort their application to National Research Ethics Committee. That is mandatory. So for the receipt of ethics clearance clinical trial also required to obtain clinical trial certificate from Tanzania Medicine. We have already published research findings. The principal investigator would have to seek permission from NIM. So likewise, before you conduct your research, you ask the permission and you got the approval. And therefore, when you want to publish your results, you are also required to request research permission to publish. And during permission to publish, you will submit your manuscript to the National Institute for Medical Research for review before submissions. And this is very easy. That's because there are some people may publish data which is false, fabrication. You see, for instance, for 3 months back, we find it in the website. One person is published the research and say almost about 90% of Tanzanian has an HIV positive. So we went back to find out where this research was getting permissions. So we follow it, and then we take the measures. We retract that research from the domain because it has published something which is wrong. It's not true that 90% of Tanzania is HIV positive. So that's why we say that before you publish your material or research, you are supposed to ask permission to publish. So permission to publish, we should send your manuscript, and then the expertise will look at your manuscript, and then they can say that now you can publish your materials. That's just to avoid such a thing. Some people to publish issues which is quite wrong. And for this case, we find out that was a student from Nigeria who published that report, which was very wrong. And then we went further and we retract that research from the public domain. So maybe if the question is why we have to submit research findings or why we needed to ask permission to publish our research findings, some of issues are such kind of issues to avoid people to publish something which is not true. See, because it is sometimes our image as a country now it's destroyed because of the data. Some people they have their own interests related to data, and therefore they can publish into the public domain the data which is false. That is called falsification, and the falsification is unethical, and it has something punishment. Another thing, the protocol for survey aiming at evidence-based planning and decision making at national level in Tanzania, investigator is required by law to consult the National Bureau for Statistics for further advice. Some of them, they are doing a survey, very huge survey. So at this particular time, you have to contact the NBS, because the NBS is the owner of the data, National Bureau for Statistics. So the link between this peer formula, you have seen the copies of certificate of recurrent research protocol sent respective district. I think these have also been explained, enlarged. So research ethics approval is renewed annually, and the principal investigator is required to submit progress report. We have discussed this much. So upon obtaining all relevant approval for conducting this research, investigators are required administratively to seek permission to introduction letter from the PMORAC to engage with local communities where the study will be conducted. So some of you you are going to conduct the study in the village. So you are not allowed to enter into the village before introduction letter from the president's office, local administrative in the local government. For us, we say TAMISEMI. So you will get this permission, and then you can go up to the certain lower level or lower facilities. However, this is a protecting of you for you, because sometimes you are going to the village, no one knows you. So if you follow all of these mechanism, obvious, you will be introduced up to the local leaders, and therefore you will be safe. I think some of you might remember what was happening in the researchers in Dodoma when they got Dodoma to Mpwapwa without following these issues, and then people they kill him. Nadhani mnakumbuka kuna watu gari lilichomwa moto la watafiti na watafiti walikufa kama 5 hivi kule Dodoma. Kwa hiyo this is one of the very important issues to follow if you are doing this, and this is because it is also its benefit for yourself. It is safe for yourself. So reporting whether your research has been passing through any kind of IRB, whether it is institution or it is national level, you are supposed to provide this report. Supposed to provide reports. So researcher must provide relevant information to the committee to permit the monitoring of research records. Kwa hiyo tunahitaji kupata taarifa kadri muda unavyozidi kwenda. Sasa mara nyingi tupende kupata taarifa za kila siku, ila at least miezi 6 tupate mwaka. Wakati ule mwaka unakuja kurenew ile certificate, basi tutakuwa tuna report tunajua. So information about any serious adverse event. So for the clinical trial, the serious adverse events should be reported within 24 hours, I think. Ukiwa wewe ni study coordinator, kwa sababu miongoni wenu wengi nyinyi mtakuwa ma study coordinator labda kwenye project nyingi kubwa za trials, kule tutahitaji kupata taarifa ya haraka sana pindi tutaona wewe mwenyewe study coordinator au PI yourself. Mara nyingi study coordinator ana observe kwanza and then ana report to the PI. Uone ukiona kuna shida yoyote kwa yule study participant, especially kwa hizi clinical trial, unahitaji report ya haraka sana kufika NEMRI, na kuna namna ya kuzituma hizo report within 24 hours. This should be reported. Whether it is DSMB report, safety updates, biannual, and the final report with summary of the study key findings, recommendation, and the conclusions. So we need this report, and then once we see your compound which is researchable, they bring a number of serious adverse event for the study participant. Obvious, sometimes the NATRIC, they can send their committee to come to see what is happening. And if we see that the adverse event is small, and then we can stop the research activities at all. For the sake of the protection of our study participants. So thank you very much for your listening. I was prepared for you. And now maybe back to you, Chair. But mind you, just in summary, when you talk about the review of the research ethics, we have the main 2 levels. We have the local and then we have the national level. The local one is those which is available at your institution, and that is what we call institutional review committee. And those institutional review committee are governed by the National Research Ethics Committee, because yani naweza kusema yani hao ni watoto wa national, ambao sisi tunaamini hizo committee, we believe on that, and then that's why say they can do, they are capable to work on behalf of National Research Ethics Committee for those protocol which is not a clinical trial, and for those protocol which does not involve the foreign investigator. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gabriel, for the nice presentation. And I hope everyone has got something to guide them in their research. So I welcome if anyone has a question, you can raise your hand and ask. But anybody? Or you can type the question in the chat box, we can read it for you. So, Dr. Gabri, I have a question regarding, okay, Ruhanga. Ruhanga, karibu. You can ask a question. Unmute your mic.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to thank also the presenter, Dr. Gabriel, for nice presentations. I have some question concerning this research ethics. The first question I would like to know at the institution level, taking an example, someone is working at maybe at country level, and maybe can be at a health center or a district hospital, or at the country level, we want to conduct a certain research, and there is no institution level around those areas. So this person will start at the regional level or will start directly to NIM. That's the first question. Then the second question I would like to know the how amount someone will be charged to ask for ethical clearance. If there is any amount charged, or someone can apply freely. And once the person has been applied, how long will it take it to receive the feedback that your proposal has been approved, or you have to make some amendment? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ruhaga. Ruhaga Issa. Do you hear, Ruhaga?
Yes, Doctor. Yeah, Ruhaga Issa from KCMC.
Okay, thank you, Ruhaga. Thank you very much. Yeah, your first question was, if someone wanted to conduct a research and he or she is an area where there is no research ethics committee, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I said that if you don't, if you are in an area where there is no research ethics committee, you can send directly your proposal to the National Health Research Ethics Committee for evaluations. And the second question is about the cost.
The amount, if there is
yeah, it is true. In our national level, we have the cost which we charge for the submission of the approval. We have the cost which we charge, and this is because, as I told you, there are some members, they are supposed to sit for the committee, and those members are paid, and some of them they are coming outside the region, and therefore we give some reimbursement for sitting such as one sitting, and therefore for the National Research Ethics Committee we have the cost, but it is different depending on your research you are doing. For example, when you conduct a clinical trial, their payment is different from those who submit the proposal for behavioral research. Also, for the student, their payment is different from the others who submitted other proposals. So the student has minimal as compared to others. With regard to the time frame for your review to be completed, and this depends, because as I told you before that we have about two types of review. We have expedited review, and we have the normal review. For instance, if someone is reviewing an expedited review, we normally wanted a reviewer to submit the first comment within 7 days of the receiving that particular proposal. So for the expedited review, maybe it can take you even it may be a month to obtain a grant or to grant approval. Maybe a month, but for the ordinary, it can take more than that. It can be 6 weeks up. It can be months or and above. But it depends, because as you see, as you said, the delay of the protocol. There are so many areas whereby you can obtain the delay. For instance, some of which during submissions, sometimes PI submitted the proposal with the hypo documentation, so they have to be sent back to him or her. Another area where we can delay is during the review process. Sometimes a reviewer can accept the protocol to review, but unfortunately, after a while, sometimes they accept it, and then after a while, they deny. So there are some days or there's a few days of delay which could happen. But also nowadays, at least nowadays they are going to solve this problem. It was the issue of the signature, because our certificate we are supposed to be sent to CMO, Chief Medical Officer, for signature. So should be taking this protocol and then maybe by DHL or poster to Dodoma, and then Chief Medical Officer put their signature. Sometimes it may find that the Chief Medical Officer is maybe not in the office during the particular time. So there are some kind of delay. But for the issue of review, we have two types of review: a ordinary review, and the expedited review. The expedited review will convey the short duration as compared to ordinary review. Thank you. Back to you, Luhaga.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor, for your response. It's well response. So sorry for more interference. According to this explanation, it means that you have to obtain this ESCO clearance. So yesterday, during we started this project about types of research. We saw there is the apply analytical research. This I'm using the secondary data. So once I'm using the secondary data, there is no need to ask for this ESCO clearance, because I'm using the secondary data.
No, actually, when you are dealing with the secondary data, we have the so-called waivers. You have to seek for the waivers. You have to get permission to use that data, because that data is also you should follow some ethical mechanism to use the data. So you have to apply it for the so-called waivers, and then you will be granted to use the secondary data, but not to take the secondary data and do what you are doing. You can never publish elsewhere. Understand?
Okay. So this waivers is obtained from that the same or at the institution where I'm going to obtain to take those secondary data.
Is it who is a researcher on that particular secondary data assessment? Is it yourself? Do the research involve foreigners or local? If it is involved local, obviously you can use your own ethics committee. But if your secondary data analysis involve any foreigner, you have to seek permission to namely. Idaya, uliza swali Idaya. Idaya, una swali lakini sijaelewa vizuri. Unauliza habari ya cost. I don't know how do you want to know about cost? Idaya.
Hello, Dr. Gabriel. So my
Yeah.
question asks if there are those costs and there is delays in getting feedbacks, especially for us students, that becomes even much more difficult and research is not made more palatable. So how can these constraints be eliminated to make it much more easier for students, especially for those of us undergraduates who are interested in research? We know it is hectic and even a larger burden of costs and delays are put in the way. How can this be? How can we be helped as student in this case?
Yeah, thank you. Idaya. If I go to your question, is you are the undergraduate student and your research is delaying. So for the undergraduate, obviously your application end up at your institution level, and therefore your institution level should be in a position to answer such a question. Why do they being late for providing feedback? So, but in general, late of the providing feedback to the student, sometimes it may happen from the various levels. Sometimes to the PI himself. When I say PI is a student, a principal investigator. You as a student, when you conduct your research, is a principal investigator. You are called PI, isn't it? Sometimes it can be the PI delaying of delaying to uh, to comply with those comments which have been given by the reviewers. But also in the reviewer side, sometimes some of the reviewer, they are very busy in the institution. So, and then they are given a protocol to review while they are busy. So what they do, they can they can take a longer time to review that protocol. Sometimes it can be even 2 months. Yeah? And I know your challenge because at the level of the university, most of the issues are in deadline. Most of them, they're in deadline. So I know your challenge is sometimes we were failed to meet deadline because of the of that particular problem. But I think this should be discussed at your level, and then can come up with such a mechanism. For instance, for us, when I was at the department at NIMRI, we were given a reviewer the protocol. It was like that, but when you give the reviewer to review the protocol, and then when it passed maybe about 7 days, the reviewer didn't comply. Sometimes we retract, we give some other reviewers who maybe can take some a short time. However, this could also be contributed to the longevity of the review because until you take any action to retract the protocol to the other reviewer that has passed some maybe even 5 days. So I know you are concerned, Idaya. You are very sorry. It's because you are running with the deadlines. I don't know if I've answered your answer, your question correct.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. May I also ask, from your experience, have you ever gotten any case where undergraduate students are asking for permission from NIMR, or has it always been for master students or independent researchers?
Yeah, nearby 2 days back, I've reviewed the undergraduate student who are seeking permission to conduct research at NIMRI. This student was from Morogoro, SUA. So there are so many undergraduates who seek permission to the to NIMRI. But for us, we don't entertain this because at NIMRI, for undergraduate students, you will be very scrutinized as compared to your level. So unless if you are undergraduate student and your research also has a foreign investigator, you can ask at NIMRI, because myself also I take time to discourage those students from some other universities whom they have ethics committee. because mind you, at the level, at the national, we scrutinize the protocol in detail. So if you are a student, you will be embarrassed a lot. So we have the students who apply direct to NIMLI. And even about 1 month ago, I did review one of the protocol from undergraduate from the public health department at the Sokoine University. Yes, it does.
Thank you very much.
Back to you, Chair. Now it is about 14:07.
Yeah, the session has 2 hours and you have to like 1 hour and 5 minutes. So Dadash, welcome. You have a question from Dadash. You can unmute the mic and ask the question.
Okay, thank you for this chance. My name is Ndakibae Gabriel, a student pursuing Bachelor of Veterinary Medicine at Sokoine University of Agriculture. My question relies on the following issues. As you have explained earlier that research ethics, these are the principles and guidelines that governs how research is conducted to ensure that it's performed responsibly, honestly, and with integrity. I think that's the research ethics. Now, my question is that, do you incorporate all aspects of animal? Because I'm here at Sokoine University and studying Bachelor in Veterinary Medicine. So do you have these committees that maybe they provide this research ethics, maybe specifically for research ethics that deals purpose with veterinary research, also for health research, also for environmental research, all it's only one ethics that incorporates all these aspects. Also, my second question is that since you said earlier that research ethics is cross-cutting, my question is that, can a veterinary researcher, specifically undergraduate, join hands with a health researcher, specifically an undergraduate student, to perform maybe a certain research that combines all of them? Because all of these are gaining approval from different committees, all boards. So those are just my two questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ndaki, for your good questions. To answer all your two questions is the concept of One Health. You know it. You know the concept of One Health.
Very, very, very well.
Yeah, if you know it, but there is no way, or there is no clear cut that you can never conduct a research with the other researchers. That is one. Second, here, even at NIMLI, we have the BVM specialist. So because we know that the disease patterns, so there is zoonotic diseases. So disease can come from the animal to the human being. So that's why we have this concept of One Health. So there is no any problems for you to conduct a research or health research in Tanzania, or to join your hand with the other researchers from other, maybe from the medical doctor or nurses or pharmacists. Those things is, there are so many researches which is ongoing in your country, which compose of that particular expertise. So your first question was the issue of the ethics of the veterinary. If you go and you find out our guidelines, health research ethics guidelines, mwishoni kule, you can go to the NIM website and then you can see mwishoni kule kabisa utaona kuna vitu vinahusiana research ambazo zinafanyika kwa wanyama na vitu vinahusiana hivyo, na kuna hizo guidelines zake lakini sisi pati yetu kidogo ni ndogo ukilinganisha na veterinary specialist, kwa sababu wao ndo wanaelewa zaidi kuhusu wanyama, issues za dissection na nini, how many no, why we say the ethics in the animal, because most of our clinical research, clinical trials are started from the small animals. So even the animal has their own rights, and therefore if they have the rights, even the animal should be protected. Therefore the ethics of conducting research in animal is in place. So even as an IMRI, because we have the called the One Earth, if you go to the guidelines, you may find out there is a space which talking about that issues, but in detail this can be described much in veterinary medicines and so on. However, namely is just like an amalgam, which has a number of specialties. So the veterinary doctor BVMs we have at namely, that is because nowadays we don't focus the disease to the human being only, because now most of the diseases, they have close species. Some of them the animal to human being to animal, and most of the disease which is close species, they are very virulent as compared to some other diseases. Yes, Innocent Sambua, you have a question. You have the correct medical research with foreign investigators not allowed. It's not allowed. Sambua, ask your question clearly. It seems as if we have write something which is we do not discuss in this session.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Innocent. While I was trying to listen to your session, when you are talking about the institutional research ethics committees, there's a point upon this discussion, there's a point you mentioned that foreign investigators, when you include foreign investigators in a research, it has to be granted permission. I think it was by the National Research Ethical Committee, but I did not clearly get that at that moment. So if
Okay. Okay, so Sambua, let us go back to what have been discussing. We said that if you have a research which involves foreign investigator, understand?
yes,
The foreign investigator protocol, this protocol should be submitted to NIMRI for evaluations. Despite you will use your local institution review committee, but also any protocol which involve foreign investigator should be submitted to NIMRI. If it happens, you have the research, ongoing research in your institution, and it has involved a number of foreigners, and that research did not submitted or proposed, did not submitted to NIMRI, hapo utakuwa umevunja sheria. Nani umenielewa bwana? Nani? Sorry.
I have understood.
Umeelewa?
Yes.
Tunahitaji kujua wanaokuja kwenye research wanakuja kufanya nini, tuwajue. Si ndio bwana?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I could get a time for me to ask a question. You said about when you want to publish your research, you have to resubmit your article to NIBLI in order to publish it. But what about, because in order to publish, you have to submit it to the journals, and the journals, they have these peer reviewers in order which reviews your article if the article can be published and it follows everything that is required for research to be done even ethics. So why do you have to submit to namely, but also there are peer reviewers from journals?
Yes. For us, when you submit your manuscript to NIMRI to seek permission to publish, we are not reviewing you are not reviewing your manuscript actually. What we want to see is what you are going to publish. Understand?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sisi sababu zetu sasa hapo ni nani za kiusalama sasa. Labda niseme kwa lugha rahisi. Umeelewana?
Ndio.
Sasa hapo kwa lugha nyepesi kwamba sababu zingine ni za kiusalama, kwa sababu ukimwacha kila mtu yeye akaandike anavyoitaka akaiandike, yani nchi kwenye mambo ya afya anavyotaka, haitowezekana. That's why nikakwambia, that's why nikawapa mfano. Kuna pepa moja tumeretract huko kwenye nini, kwenye domain website huko, ilikutwa inasema 90% ya Watanzania wana HIV. Ni kweli hiyo document? Eti mzee,
hapana.
hiyo taarifa ni sahihi?
Hapana.
Hapana,
Sasa
doctor.
tuliambiwa kwamba katika watu 100, sawa bwana, watu 90 wana ugonjwa wana HIV positive, lakini tumefuatilia hiyo taarifa, hatukuona popote huyo mtu kwanza aliomba upublish kwetu NIMRI. Endapo angeomba NIMRI publication, si tungeona manuscript ile, tungemwambia hebu tupe uthibitisho wa jambo hili, obviously lisingeenda kwenye public domain. Sio, unaelewa? Kwa hiyo sasa si tumekuta kwa mfano ameshasema, let's say kule. Sasa unadhani nchi zingine zinatuchukuliaje? Yaani ukifika tu airport pale, kwa mfano mzuri mgeni akifika airport pale, yani kila anayekutana naye maana yake ni mgonjwa yani. Kwa hiyo permission to publish iko na a number of reasons. Umeona, lakini mojawapo ni kama hivyo, kuangalia hizo vitu kama hizo data nazo, hivyo vitu tunavyotaka kwenda kuvipeleka kwa public domain, reliability yake iko vipi? Umeona, kwa mwisho wa siku utakuja kuleta shida if you are a student and then you publish such kind of hizo data, alafu si tukiretract tukaandika barua chuoni kwako kama umepata PhD kwa sababu ya ile data, obviously unaweza ukavuliwa hata na hiyo PhD, na hiyo ndo adhabu ya academic discipline kwa watu ambao wanafanya falsification of data. Kwa hiyo inawezekana umegraduate PhD yako Muhimbili, lakini kumbe hizo data za uongo. Kwa hiyo si tukicomplain tukaja tukaretract, ina maana zile nene hizo nani zako kwenye jono, na tukatoa taarifa kwenye chuo ulichosoma, obviously wanachukua sasa ile degree yao, unarudi tena ulikotoka. Kwa hiyo ndo anasema mara nyingi ni muhimu sana kufuatilia hivi vitu, kwa sababu cost yake wakati mwingine ni kubwa. Tumeelewana?
Yeah, asante sana. So is there anyone with a question before we end up? Okay, so I think there's no question. Dr. Gabriel,
Yeah.
I think we can end up the session. Well, we thank you for such notes, and still you have agreed to come and teach us the rest of the session. So we have learned a lot from this session, and we wish to learn more from what you've taught us. So maybe if you have like neno la mwisho before ya kuondoka na kufunga session, unaweza kutupa.
For your nice hint for this presentation, and I'm very happy to meet with those of you. And unfortunately, I didn't give you even an email of my email if you have questions. you can also lodging in my email. So maybe Madam Alima, or I don't know whether I can write in the chat here, my email. Is it, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also na tunaweza tukapata hii presentation in case ili tuweze kufollow through baada hapa.
Yeah, I've sent my email in the chat box. Ndakibae.mabega@nimi.or.tz. So if you have any questions, anything related to research ethics, so I welcome all of you. If you have anything in relation to the research ethics, for those who are in KUHAS, also I'm available at the Department of Medical Ethics at Catholic University of Health and Allied Sciences. So for those who are at KUHAS, we can meet at any time. So if you find me, you can meet at any time. But for those who are far from me, so you just take my email, and then if you have any questions, anything, hata ukitaka advice, ushauri, una kitu unataka kufanya, labda unataka hivyo, I'm free because I'm a teacher. You know, unajua walimu ni wito bwana.
Yeah.
Kwa hiyo
na tulikuwa tunaomba pia kama tunaweza kupata pia slide kwa ajili ya kureview even after the session hapa. Nafikiri
sasa slide nitampa Madam Alima, basi atatumia nikisha kuwa nimezipurify kidogo. Unajua leo kanishtukiza, tukaniambia sijui ilikuwa saa 9 ndo amenipa hii assignment. So unaweza ukaimagine kutoka saa 9 mpaka saa hizi ni muda gani nimechukua mpaka kufanya some kind of preparation mpaka kuja kudeliver hichi nilichokileta hapo.
sasa nafikiri nitaconsult pia na hiyo ili in case kama kisahau ili tuipate. Nipende kushukuru sana.
Asante sana jana.
Sawa.
Jioni njema.
Kwako pia.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.